Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. I have combined all the videos in our quiz website design series into this single long video so that it's easy for you to follow. Now in this video we are basically going to create this quiz right here. So we can click on the start quiz button and we will have this quiz, and you can go ahead and answer this quiz, and at the end you will have the result displayed. So here we can see we have the result screen, and we also have the detailed result where we have the user answer and the correct answer displayed over here. And then we have the button to retake the quiz, and this is also responsive. So in this video we're going to see how to design this using HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and then in the end I will also show you how to add this to your Blogger website, and I will also leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. So let's get started. Right, this is how it works. We can see that we have this question and we have 4 options over here, and we have 10 seconds for each of the questions. And after 10 seconds, the next question is being displayed. And then we can select one of these options. So I'll just select a wrong option. And now we can see we have this red background color over here. And then we have another question, and let's select the right answer over here. And now we can see we have this green color for the right answer. And now we have the next question, so let's select one of these options, and we can also click on the next button to go to the next question. And let's click on next, and now we can see that we have the result displayed over here, and we have scored 1 out of 5. So here we can see for the first question we haven't answered the question, so it says not answered, and we have the correct answer displayed over here. Now for all the wrong answers we have this red background color. And then we can see we have this second question and we have answered it incorrectly, and here is the correct answer. And then we have the third question which is answered correctly, and then we have the next questions over here, and then we also have this option of retaking the quiz. Now the questions over here are selected randomly from a bunch of questions. So we have 5 questions displayed randomly, and these options over here are also randomly placed. So right now Isaac Newton is displayed in the first place, but later it may be displayed in any other place over here. So this is how this quiz works. So in this video we will just design it using HTML and CSS, and in the next videos we will add the JavaScript to add the functionality. So let's get started. Alright, so here I have created this folder called quiz, and I just opened it with VS Code. Now let's create the necessary files. So let's click on new file. Let's create an HTML file. I'll just name it index.html. Let's create a CSS file. I'll just name it style.css. And let's create a JavaScript file. I'll just name it main.js. Right, let's start with the index.html file. Now in VS Code you can just type exclamation and press tab, and you'll have this basic HTML5 code. Now let's go ahead and link our CSS file over here. So I'll just type link and press tab, and here in the href let's type style.css, and in the body let's type script :src and press tab, and here let's type main.js. Right, now let's start with the markup of our design. So the first thing we will do is we'll create a container division. So let's create a division and let's give it a class of quiz container. And in this the first thing we need to have is this heading. So I'll just copy this heading from here, and let's create an h1, and here let's paste the heading. Right, now the next thing we need to do is we need to create this timer. So for that let's create a division with the class of timer, and in that we need to type time left, and by default it will be 10 seconds. And the next thing we need to do is create this question. So for the question let's create an h2, and let's give it a class of question, and I'll just copy this question from here and let's paste it over here. Right, now the next thing we need to do is add the options. So here we have 4 options. So let's create a container division for that, and I'll just give it a class of options. And for each of the options let's create buttons, and I'll just give it a class of option. And let's go ahead and add some options over here. I'll just type Jane Austen, and I'll just copy this 3 more times. Right, now the next thing we need to have is the next button. So here after this options division, let's create a button and let's give it a class of next btn, and here let's type next. Alright, that's basically it with this screen right here. Now let's go ahead and style it using CSS. So here let's go to the style.css file, and first of all let's target the quiz container. So I'll just type quiz container, and here the first thing we will do is we will add a font family, and let's set the font family to Roboto and sans serif. And now let's go ahead and add a max width, and let's set it to 900 pixels, and let's set a margin of 0 auto. Let's go ahead and open this in our browser and let's see how it looks. So I have this extension called Live Server installed in VS Code. So once you have that installed, you can just right click over here in the HTML and click on Open with Live Server. And here we have our design displayed in the browser. Right now let's go back and let's add some padding as well for smaller screens. So here I'll just type padding, and let's set it to 16 pixels. Right now let's go ahead and style the timer. So for the timer we have this division with the class of timer. So here let's type quiz container timer, and for the timer we will set the font weight to bold, and we will set the text align to right. And when we are less than 3 seconds, we need to have this timer displayed as a red color. So for that we will add a class called danger. So let's type timer.danger, and here let's type color red. So here if we go back to our HTML, and here if we add the class danger, now we can see we have red color. Right now let's go ahead and style the question. So for the question we have this h2 with the class of question. So here let's type quiz container h2.question. And first of all, let's set the font size to 20 pixels, and let's set a background color, and let's set it to D0ECFF, and let's add a padding of 16 pixels, and let's set the border radius of 8 pixels so that we have rounded corners, and let's set the font weight to normal. So I'll just have font weight normal. And we'll also set a line height for larger questions, and we'll just set it to 1.6. Right now let's go ahead and style these options. So let's go back and let's target the container division, which is options. So let's type quiz container options, and we'll set the display to grid, and we'll set it to grid template columns, and let's set it to 1FR, which means 2 columns. Now we can see we have 2 columns for the options, and let's also add a gap. So let's type gap, and let's set it to 16 pixels, and let's add a margin bottom for the options. So let's type margin bottom, and let's set it to 20 pixels. Right now let's style these buttons. So for the buttons we have this button with the class of option. Let's target that. Let's type quiz container option, and let's set the border to none. And we'll set a padding of 24 pixels top and bottom, 32 pixels left and right. Let's set the font size to 18 pixels, and let's set the background color to 1D3557, and let's set the color of the text to white. Let's also set the cursor to pointer for these options and also this next button. So I'll just target all the buttons. So I'll just type button, and here let's type quiz container, and here let's type cursor pointer, and now we can see we have this pointer. Right now the next thing we need to do is, once one of these options is clicked, all these options should be disabled. So the user should not be able to change the answer after selecting one of these answers, because after selecting the answer we are essentially displaying them whether the answer is correct or not based on the background color. So let's go back and let's add a class called disabled. So once we have this disabled class, I'll just set the pointer events to none. Right now let's set the colors for the right and the wrong answers. So for the right answer, we'll be having a class called correct. So let's type option dot correct, and if the answer is correct, let's set the background color to 51E351, And let's set the color of the text to 222. And now let's go back over here to the HTML, and here let's type correct. And now we can see we have the color for the correct answer. Right now let's go back and let's type option dot incorrect. And when we have the incorrect answer, we need to set the color to E63946. And let's go back over here and let's add the incorrect class over here. So let's type incorrect. And now we can see we have the color for the incorrect answer. Right now let's style this next button over here. For the next button, we have this button with the class of next btn. So let's go ahead and type quiz container next btn. And let's set the background color to 222. And let's set the color of the text to white. And let's remove the border. So let's tap border none. And let's add a padding of 12 pixels top and bottom and 32 pixels left and right. Let's set the font size to 20 pixels. And let's set the text transform to uppercase. And let's also set the font weight to bold. And we will set the letter spacing to 3 pixels. Alright, that's basically it with this screen right here. Now let's go ahead and style the results page. So let's go back to our HTML, and here let's add a new division. And let's give it a class of quiz result. And in that, let's go ahead and create an h2. And here let's type you have scored 4 out of 5. Now when the quiz result is displayed, this should not be displayed. So for now, let's go ahead and hide this. So here for the quiz container, I'll just set the display to none. Right now, let's go ahead and add the questions. So here after this heading, let's go ahead and create a division with the class of question container. And in this, we need to have the question and the user's answer and also the correct answer. So let's type question. And here let's add the question. So I'll just copy this same question from here. And let's paste it over here. And now let's add the user answer. So let's create a division with the class of user answer. And here let's type your answer. And here we can add the answer of the user. So for now, I'll just type not answered. And then we need to add the correct answer. So let's create a division with the class of correct answer. And here let's type correct answer. And here we can add the correct answer. Now in the same way, we need to have 5 of these question containers because we have 5 questions in our quiz. So let's copy this and I'll just paste it 5 more times. And here we can see we have 5 question container divisions. And in the end, we also need to have a button. And let's give it a class of retake button. So this will be the button for retaking the quiz. And here let's type retake quiz. And we will add the same styling that we have for the next button for this retake button. So here let's type quiz result retake btn. And now we can see we have the same styling added over here. And we'll also set the cursor to pointer. Right now, when the answer is incorrect, we also need to add a class over here so that we have a red background color. So here I'll just type incorrect. Right now, let's go ahead and style this. So here in the style.css file, let's type quiz result. And let's set the display to flex and flex direction to column. And we will have a gap of 24 pixels between the elements. And let's set a max width of 900 pixels. And let's bring it to the center by typing margin 0 auto. And for this also, let's set the font family to Roboto sans serif. And let's also add a padding of 16 pixels. Right now, let's target these question containers. So let's type quiz result question container. and we'll set a padding of 12 pixels, and let's set a border of 1 pixel solid light gray. And let's also add some gap between these elements. So let's set the display to flex direction to column, and let's set a gap of 10 pixels. And for the incorrect answer, we need to have red background color. So let's type quiz result question container dot incorrect, and let's set the background color to E63946, and we'll set the color of the text to white. And for the retake quiz button, we need to have the width of the content. So here let's type width, and let's set it to fit content. And now we can see we have the correct width and everything looks alright. So that's basically it with the styling of our quiz website. In the previous video, we created the design using HTML and CSS, and this is how the result screen looks. Let's go back to our code, and I'll just display the quiz screen, and for the result screen, I'll just set the display to none. So here we have the quiz screen. So this is what we had designed in the previous video. Now in this video, we will start adding the functionality using JavaScript. So let's get started. Right, here is our original design, and for now I have just disabled the timer. So we're going to focus on all the other things, and in the end we will add the timer. So the first thing we need to do is we need to display all these questions and options from a JavaScript array of objects. And the next thing we need to do is we need to go to the next question when we click on this next button. And the next thing we need to do is we need to calculate which of these is the correct answer. And when we click on one of these options, we need to display whether the answer is correct or not. And once we have clicked on one of these options, we should not be able to change the answer. And if we click on the next button, we have the next question. And if we click on the correct answer, we should have the green background color, and we should not be able to change the option over here as well. And we can click on the next button to go to the next question, and then we have the next question. And now we can see at the end we have the results screen, and here we can see it says we have scored 1 out of 5, and here we have the answer of the user and also the correct answer displayed. And when we have the correct answer, it has this white background color, and when we have the wrong answer, it has this red background color. And then we have the option of retaking the quiz. So you can just click on this button called retake quiz, and here we have the quiz started all over again. And then in the end, we'll also add the functionality of this timer. So let's get started. Right, here we have the source code, and the first thing we will do is we will create an array of objects for all the questions and the options and also the correct answer. So you can go ahead and create an array. So let's name it quiz data, and let's create an array, and in this we need to have objects. So in the object we need to have the question. So here we can see we have the question, and we need to have the options and also the correct answer. So we can just type question, and here we can add the question, and then we need to add the options, and we need to have 4 options. So we can just create an array, and here in this array we can add all the 4 options. So we can just add the first option over here, and then we can add a comma and add the second option and the third and the fourth options. And then in the end we need to have the correct answer. So we can just type correct, and here we can just add the correct answer. So this is basically the first question. Now in this way we need to create all the questions that we need. So I'll just quickly go ahead and copy and paste the questions that I have. Right, so here I have copied and pasted all these questions and options and the correct answer. So here we have this quiz data, and we have all these questions over here. Right, now the next thing we need to do is we need to create a function to display the questions. So we'll create a function called create question. And let's create the function over here. So I'll just type const create question. Right, now before proceeding with our create question function, let's go ahead and reference some of these elements from the HTML. So we need to reference the quiz container because we need to hide and show the quiz container. And then we also need to reference the quiz result, because we need to hide and display this as well. And then we need to reference the next btn, and then we need to reference the options and also the question. So let's go ahead and reference all of these elements. So here I'll just type const quiz container equals document.querySelector, and here let's type quiz container, and then let's reference the question. So let's type question equals document.querySelector, and the question is inside the quiz container, and we have this class of question. So let's type quiz container question. Right now let's type const options equals document.querySelector quiz container, and we have this division with the class of options. And then let's type const next btn equals document.querySelector quiz container next btn, because here we can see we have this class of next btn. And then lastly, let's also reference quiz result. So let's type const quiz result equals document.querySelector quiz result. Right now let's go ahead and create a variable for the question number. So let's type let question number equals, and by default we will set it to 0. Right, so now let's go ahead and delete this question from here, from the HTML. And now we can see that the question is not being displayed. Now we need to display the question from this JavaScript array. So here let's go ahead and type question.innerHTML equals quiz data, which is the name of this array, and we need to get the question which is inside this array. And for the index we will pass this question number. So here let's type question number dot question, and now we can see that the question is being displayed over here. So this is the first question. Now if you want to display the second question, we can just change this question number. So if we just type 1, now we can see that the second question is being displayed over here. So we have the second question. So we will start with question number set to 0. Right now let's go ahead and display the options. So we need to loop through all these options, and we need to create this button with the class of option, and we need to add the value over here. So let's do that. Let's type quiz data question number dot options dot for each, and for each of the option I'll just call it O, and let's create an arrow function. And the first thing we need to do is we need to create this option. So we need to create a button with the class of option. So let's type const option equals document.createElement, and let's type button, and we need to add a class of option. So let's type option.classList.add option, and let's type option.innerHTML, and here we need to add the content of the option. So we are calling it O. So let's type O over here, and we need to add this option to the options. So here we can see we have the options. So let's type options.append child, and here let's type option. And now if you go back, here we can see that the options are displayed over here, but we also have these options from the HTML that we added earlier displayed over here. So let's go back and let's remove all of this, and now we can see we have the option of the question displayed over here. So let's go ahead and let's change the question. So let's select question number 3, and now we can see that the question and the options are displayed over here. Right now the next thing we will do is we will display these options randomly. So we don't want to display these options in the same order every time. So for that, let's create a function. So let's create a function called shuffle array, and we'll just get an array, and we will go ahead and randomize the array over here. So let's type return, and here let's type array dot slice, and here we need to type sort, and in here we need to add a compare function. So you can type arrow function math.random minus 0.5. So this is basically a quick way of shuffling all the items inside the array. Now we can pass any array to this function, and it will give us a shuffled array. So let's go ahead and do that first of all for the quiz data array so that all these questions are mixed up before displaying it. So here for the question number, I'll just set it to 0. And here, let's type quiz data equals shuffle array. And here we'll pass the quiz data. And now let's save this and let's go back. And now if we refresh this page, we can see that we have different questions displayed every time. So the array is shuffled before calling the function. Now let's shuffle these options. So for that, let's go ahead and here, let's type const shuffled options equals shuffle array. And here let's type quiz data question number, which is the current question. And here let's type options. And now here, instead of looping through these options from the quiz data question number, we just loop through these shuffled options because we have shuffled all the options inside the current question over here. So let's type shuffled options dot for each. And now let's see whether the options are shuffled. So for now, I'll just go ahead and comment this shuffling of the quiz data. And now if we see, we can see that we have Beijing at the beginning. Now if we refresh this page, we can see that it is now the second option. So every time we refresh this page, the options are shuffled. So now let's go back and uncomment this. Now let's also go ahead and add the functionality of this next button. So let's add an event listener to this next btn. So let's tap next btn.add event listener, and we will listen for the click event. And we'll create a function called display next question. And let's create the function over here. So let's tap const display next question. Now here the first thing we need to do is we need to check whether the question number is greater than the maximum number of questions that we need in the quiz. So here let's also create a const and let's type max questions and let's set it to 5. So here let's add an if condition and let's type question number and let's see whether it is greater than or equal to max questions minus 1 because arrays start from 0. So if we are on the last question, we need to display the result. So for that, we'll just create a function called display quiz result. And for now, I'll just go ahead and set the display to flex for this quiz result. So here we can see we have already referenced this. So let's create a function called display quiz result. And for now, I'll just go ahead and type quiz result dot style dot display equals flex. And we need to set the display of the quiz container to none. So let's type quiz container dot style dot display equals none. Now we need to add more logic over here, but we will do that later. And here after that, we'll just return from this function. Now if this is not true, then let's go ahead and increment the question number by 1. So let's type question number plus plus. And then we will call the create question function. So let's type create question. And let's see whether this works. So let's go back. And here we have the first question displayed. And let's click on the next button. And we have the second question displayed. But here we also have the options of the previous question displayed. So let's go back. And here inside this create question function, let's type options.innerHTML and we will set it to blank at the beginning. So let's start over. So here we have the first question. Let's click on next. We have the second question. Then we have the third question. We have the fourth question. And then we have the fifth question. Let's click on next. And now we can see we have the result screen displayed over here. Alright, so we'll just stop it here in this video. We'll continue adding the functionality in the next video. Now the first thing we will do in this video is that we will add this question number over here. So here we can see that when we click on the next button, we have the second question displayed over here. So we have 5 questions in total and this is the second question. So first of all, let's add this. So let's go back to our code, and here we can see that we have created a function for creating the question. So here we can see we have the function, and this is the function code. Now here in the question, we are just adding the question from this quiz data. So let's also add the question number over here. So I'll just go ahead and add all of this inside backticks, and I'll just add this inside $symbol curly braces. Now here we can add our question number. So here before the question, let's create a span, and let's also give it a class, and let's give it a class of question number, and let's close the span over here. And here in this span, let's add the question number. So let's type $symbol curly braces, and here let's type question number. So here we can see we have this variable called question number, and it starts from 0, and every time we click on the next button, it increments by 1. Now we want the question number to start from 1, so here let's type +1, and then if you go back, here we can see that we also have this max questions over here. So further, let's go back, and here after this, let's add /, and let's type $symbol curly braces, and here let's add the max questions. So we have this const called max questions, so I'll just add it over here. Right now let's style this real quick. So let's go to our style.css file, and here let's type question number, and let's set the font size to 16 pixels, and we'll set a margin right, and let's set it to 16 pixels as well. And now let's add a background color, and let's set the background color to 1D3557. Let's set the color of the text to white, and we'll set a padding of 8 pixels, and let's also set a border radius of 8 pixels. And this is how it looks. Right now, the next thing we will do is we will add the functionality of checking the answer. So if you go to the original website, and if I click on one of these answers, we can see that we have this green background color when the option is correct. And if I click on the wrong answer, here we can see we have this red background color. And if you go back to our CSS file, here we can see that we have already added this class. So here we can see for the incorrect option, we have this background color, and we have this incorrect class. And for the correct answer, we have this correct class, and we have this background color. So we will add one of these classes when the user clicks on the option. So let's go back to our JavaScript file, and here we can see that we are looping through all the options, and here let's also add an event listener to the option. So here let's type option.add event listener, and let's listen for the click event, and let's create an arrow function. Now for checking the answer, we'll create a function, and we'll just call it check answer. And we'll also pass the data to this check answer. So here I'll just call it E, and let's pass the data over here. Right now let's create this function called check answer. So here let's create the function called check answer, and here we are getting the data, so I'll just call it E. And here, first of all, let's store the user answer. So let's tap let, and let's create a variable called user answer, and let's set it equal to e.target.text content. Now what this will do is it will get the content of the option that we click. So if I click on this Jupiter, then it will send this text Jupiter to this user answer variable. So let's go ahead and console.log, and let's confirm whether it is working. So let's type user answer, and let's go back over here, and let's open the console. And now let's click on Tokyo, and here we can see Tokyo is being displayed. If I click on Bangkok, we have Bangkok displayed over here. So whichever option we click will be stored inside the user answer variable. So let's go back, and I'll just delete this console.log. Right now let's add an if condition, and let's check whether the user answer is the same as the correct answer that we have inside this quiz data array. So let's type user answer equals quiz data, and we are updating the question number in this question number variable. So let's type question number, and in that we have this key called correct. So let's type .correct, and if the answer is correct, Then we need to increase the score by 1. So let's create a variable called score, and by default we'll set it to 0. And here let's type score plus plus. So we will increase the score by 1. And we also want to add this class called correct to the option so that we have this background color. So let's type e.target.classList.add correct. Right now let's add an else, and if the answer is wrong, then we will need to add a class called incorrect. So I'll just copy this line of code and let's paste it over here, and here let's type incorrect because we have this class called incorrect. Right, once we have clicked on one of these options, we want all the other options to be disabled. So right now if I just click on one of these options, we can see that it is wrong, but we are able to click on the other options, and this should not happen. Once we have clicked on one of these options, all the options should be disabled. So if we go back over here to the style.css file, here we can see we have added a class called disabled, and when we have that class, the pointer events are set to none. So here, after this, let's select all the options. I'll just create a variable called all options, and let's set it equal to document.querySelector all, and here let's type quiz container, and in that we have this button with the class of option. So here let's type option. Now this will select all the options and add it inside this all options variable. Now let's loop through all the options. So let's type all options dot for each, and for each of the option I'll just call it O, and let's create an arrow function, and here let's type o.classList.add, and we will add a class called disabled. Right now let's go back to our quiz website, and if I click on one of these options, now the other options and all these options are disabled, and we also have the correct color displayed. So now if we click on the correct answer, we can see that we have the correct color and all the other options are disabled. Right now let's write the code for displaying the answers at the end. So here we can see after we go to the end of our quiz, here we can see that all the answers are displayed, and if the user had answered it incorrectly, then we have this red background color, and the correct answer is also displayed over here, and we also have the score displayed over here. So let's add this functionality. So let's go back, and here we can see that we have already created this function called display quiz result, and right now it is just displaying this static design that we just created. So now if we click on this next button, here we can see that we have this result screen displayed over here. Now we need to display the correct data over here. So for that, let's go back over here, and here let's start writing the code for the display quiz result function. The first thing we will do is we will remove all the HTML from the quiz result. So let's type quiz result dot inner HTML equals blank. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to create this heading. So let's create a constant, and I'll just name it result heading, and let's set it equal to document.createElement, and we need to create an h2, and then let's type result heading dot inner HTML, and we'll set it equal to you have scored, and here we need to display the score. So let's type $symbol curly braces, and here let's type score, and then let's type out of, and here we need to add the maximum questions. So let's type max questions, and let's add a full stop. Right now the next thing we need to do is we need to add this result heading inside this quiz result. So let's type quiz result dot append child, and here let's type result heading. Right now let's see whether the score is being displayed. So let's go back to our quiz, and let's select one of these options. So this is the wrong answer, so let's click on next, and now this is the correct answer. So we have scored 1, so let's click on next, and let's select the correct answer. So right now the score is 2, and right now the score is 3, and let's select the wrong answer, and now our score is 3 out of 5. So let's click on next, and now we can see it says you have scored 3 out of 5. Let's try it once more. Let's select all the wrong answers, And now we can see it says you have scored 0 out of 5. So the score is working all right. Right now the next thing we need to do is we need to display all the user answer and the correct answer at the end. So for that we need to store these answers somewhere. So we'll just store the answers inside the local storage of the browser. So for that, let's go back to our code, and here when we call this function called check answer, we'll also store the answer to the local storage. So here after this if condition, let's go ahead and type local storage dot set item, and here let's add backticks, and let's type user answer underscore, and here we will add the question number. So let's type dollar symbol, curly braces, question number, and then for the value let's type user answer. So we are getting the user answer over here, and we are storing it to a local storage key called user answer underscore the question number. So this will go from 0 through 4. Right now let's check and see whether the local storage is being added. So let's open the console, and let's go over here to application, and let's go to the local storage. And right now we don't have the question number stored, so let's select one of these answers, and now we can see that user answer 0 is set to Tokyo. Let's click on next, and now if we select, for example, William Shakespeare, we can see that user answer 1 is set to William Shakespeare. And now if we select Mercury, user answer 2 is set to Mercury. So everything is working all right. Now we can just go ahead and reference these values and display it at the end. So let's go back and let's go to the display quiz result function. Let's create a for loop, and let's loop from 0 to max questions, and we'll just increment it by 1. Now this loop will start from 0 and go to 4. Right now let's go back to the index.html file, and let's see how the HTML is structured. So here we can see we have this division with the class of question container, and we also have this class called incorrect if the answer of the user is incorrect. And in this question container division we have the question, we have the user answer which we'll get from the local storage, and the correct answer which we'll get from the quiz data array. So let's create this division with a class of question container. So I'll just call it result item, and let's set it to document.create element, and let's create a div, and let's give it a class. So let's type result item dot class list dot add, and let's add a class called question container, and in that we need to have the question, user answer, and the correct answer. So I'll just copy this HTML from here, and we'll just add it to this result item. So let's type result item dot inner HTML, and let's set it equal to backticks, and here we will add the HTML. Now here instead of this text, let's add the actual question. So first of all let's type question, and here let's add the question number. So let's type dollar symbol, curly braces, and here we can see that we have this iterator I, and it starts from 0. So I'll just type I plus 1. So this will give us the question number, and then let's add the colon, and let's add the actual question. So let's type dollar symbol, curly braces, and here let's type quiz data, and here in the index we need to add I because I starts from 0 to the max questions, and then let's type dot question, and then we need to add the user answer. So for that I'll just create a variable over here. So I'll just type const user answer, and I'll just set it to local storage dot get item, and we had called it user answer underscore the question number. So here let's type backticks user answer underscore dollar symbol, curly braces, and here for the question number we can just add I, and for the correct answer let's type const correct answer, and let's set it equal to quiz data I dot correct. And if the answer is incorrect, we also need to add this class of incorrect. So for that let's check whether the answer is incorrect. So here I'll just type let answered correctly, and I will just set it equal to user answer equals correct answer. So now if the user answer and the correct answer are same, then this will be set to true, or else it will be set to false. So here let's tap if exclamation answered correctly. So this will see if the answer is incorrect. And here we will add the incorrect class to result item. So let's tap result item.classlist.add incorrect. Right now here let's add your answer. So here let's type $symbol curly braces user answer, and for the correct answer let's type $symbol curly braces correct answer. Now if you don't answer one of the questions, then the user answer will be blank. So let's open the console and let's go to application and let's go to local storage, and for now I'll just delete all of these values. Right now let's go ahead and select one of these, and we have the user answer 0 set to Tokyo. But if we just skip one of these questions, then the answers are not stored over here. So if the answer is not available, then we'll just display not answered. So here let's add an or, and let's type not answered. Right now the last thing we need to do is we need to add the result item to the quiz result. So here we can see that we have already referenced quiz result. So here let's type quiz result dot append child, and here let's add result item. Right now let's see whether this works. Now we already have this local storage added, so let's go ahead and reset the local storage. So for that we'll just create a function. So here let's create a function and let's call it reset local storage. And here let's add a for loop. So I'll just loop from 0 to max questions, and we will have an increment of 1. And here let's tap local storage dot remove item, and here let's add backticks user answer underscore $symbol curly braces I. Right now let's call this reset local storage function over here. Right now let's go back, and now we can see we don't have any data in local storage. Now let's click on one of these options, and let's go ahead and solve this quiz. And now we can see that we have the result screen displayed over here. We have scored 2 out of 5, and these are the questions. So we have the first question and the answer that we submitted and the correct answer, and then we have the correct answer over here which we submitted, and here are the wrong answers and the correct answer. So all the data is being displayed correctly. Now we also want to display the retake quiz button. So here we can see we have this button called retake quiz. So let's do that. Let's go back to our code, and here we have the display quiz result function, and here at the end let's go outside this for loop, and here let's type const, and let's call it retake btn equals document dot create element, and let's create a button, and we also need to give it a class. So let's type retake btn dot class list dot add. Let's add a class of retake btn, and let's type retake btn dot inner html, and we need to set it to retake quiz. And then we also need to add an event listener to the button. So let's type retake btn dot add event listener, and we'll listen for the click event, and we'll call a function called retake quiz. And we also need to add this to the quiz result. So let's type quiz result dot append child retake button. Right now let's quickly create this retake quiz function. So here let's type const retake quiz, and here the first thing we need to do is we need to set the question number to 0, and we need to set the score to 0 as well, and then we need to set the quiz data to a shuffled data. So let's type equals shuffle array quiz data, because here we can see we have already created this function called shuffle array. And the next thing we need to do is we need to reset the local storage. So let's type reset local storage, and then we need to call this function called create question. Now in this function we are creating the HTML for the questions. So let's type create question, and we need to hide this result screen, and we need to display the quiz screen. So let's type quiz result dot style dot display equals none. And then for the quiz screen, we have this class called quiz container. So let's type quiz container dot style dot display equals block. Right now, let's go back and let's see whether everything works all right. So let's click on one of these options. And here we can see we have scored 2 out of 5. And here we have all the questions and the user answer and the correct answer. Right now, let's click on this retake quiz button. And now we can see all the local storage data has disappeared. And we have new set of questions. And now we can see we have scored 2 out of 5, and here we have the new questions displayed. So everything is working all right. So in this video, we will add the time feature. So we will have 10 seconds for each of the questions in our quiz. And after 10 seconds are over, the next question will be displayed. And we will have 5 questions in total. And now we have already coded the functionality of the quiz results screen. And this is how it looks. So let's go ahead and start with this time functionality in this video. Let's get started. Right here, I'm in the source code, and before starting with the functionality of the timer, first of all, I'll just make this responsive. So I'll just make a simple change over here. So if I go to the smaller screen, here we'll just display all these options one below the other. So here I'll just add a media query. So just type add media, and let's set the max width to 700 pixels. Now here what we need to do is we need to select the container of all the options. So here we can see that we have this division of the class of options, and in that we have all the options. So we have set it to display of grid, and we are setting the grid template columns to 1FR 1FR, which means 2 columns. So let's copy this selector from here, and I'll just paste it down here. And here I'll just type grid template columns, and let's set it to just 1FR, which means just 1 column. So now if you go back to our quiz, now we can see that all these options are one below the other. And if you go to larger screens, we have 2 columns in a row. So now this is completely responsive. Now let's go ahead and start with the functionality of the timer. So let's go back to our JavaScript file, and the first thing we will do is we'll create a variable, and let's create a variable called timer interval. And now let's go to the create question function. So here we have the create question function, and here we are creating the questions. So we are creating the HTML of these questions and these options over here. So let's start the timer in this create question function. So the first thing we will do is we'll clear all the previous timers. So for that we can just type clear interval, and here we can pass the interval name. So we have called it timer interval. So let's type timer interval. Right now let's create another variable, and let's name it seconds left, and we'll just set it to 9. Right now let's reference this timer division. So if you go back to the index.html file, here we can see we have this division with the class of timer. So let's type const timer display. I'll just call it timer display equals document.querySelector, and here let's type quiz container timer. Right now let's go ahead and type timer display dot text content, and by default we'll just set the text content to time left 10 seconds. Right now let's create the actual timer. So let's type timer interval equals set interval, and here for the interval we'll just set it to 1000, which is 1 second. So this is 1000 milliseconds, which means 1 second. So these lines of code will run every 1000 milliseconds. So here let's go ahead and type timer display dot text content, and we'll just set it to time left, and here we will add this seconds left variable. So let's type $symbol curly braces seconds left. Right now the next thing we need to do is we need to decrement the second by 1. So let's type seconds left minus minus. Right, now let's go back to our website, and here we can see that it says time left, and here we also need to add seconds. So here let's type seconds. Right now we can see it says time left 10, 9, 8, 7, and the time is decrementing. And after 0 we can see that it goes to negative numbers. Now here let's add an if condition, and let's type if seconds left is less than 0, then we'll just clear the interval. So let's type clear interval, timer interval, and then we'll just simply display the next question. So here we have this function called display next question. So let's call this function. So here let's type display next question. Now when we are less than 3 seconds, we also need to display the time in red color. So let's add an if condition over here. So let's type if seconds left is less than 3, then we'll just type timer display dot class list dot add. And if you go to the style.css file, here we can see that we have added this class called danger. So when we have the danger class, we will set the color to red. So let's type danger. Now here in the beginning, we'll just remove the danger class when new question is displayed. So let's type timer display dot class list dot remove danger. And now if you go back, here we can see that the timer is running. And now we can see when we are less than 3 seconds, it turns to red color. And now we can see that the next question is being displayed. So the timer is working all right. Now here we can see that at 10 seconds we have 2 digits, and for all the other numbers we just have 1 digit. So let's fix that. So for that you can use a function called pad start. So for that you need to first of all convert this number into a string. So let's type dot toString, and here let's type dot pad start, and here we can add any value. So the first thing is the max length. So we need to have a max length of 2, and the filling string is gonna be 0. And now if you go back, here we can see that after 10 seconds we have the number 0 displayed before all these digits. And in the beginning I think this is set to timer, so we need to change this to time left. So now everything is working all right. Right now let's go ahead and test this quiz. So here we can see we have the first question. So let's select one of these options and let's click on next. And here we can see that the timer has reset. And here we have the next question. And we can see that we haven't answered the second question. So we go to the next question after the timer is over. So let's select one of these options over here. And let's skip this question. And now we can see that we have the result screen. So here we can see we have the first question which we answered correctly. And then we have the second question which was not answered. And here we have the correct answer. And then we have the third question and fourth and the fifth question. So everything is working all right. Let's try it once more. So let's select these options. And let's wait for this timer to end for this question. And for the last question, I'll just leave it as it is. Will not answer it. So now we can see here we have the result, and we have the first, second and the third questions which we answered incorrectly. And then we have the fourth question which we answered, and we just left for the timer to go to the next question. And then we have the last question which we did not answer. So everything is working all right. So that's basically how you can add this timer functionality to your quiz using JavaScript. Now before adding this to our Blogger website, let's also add a start screen to our quiz. So let's go back to our source code. And here in the HTML, let's create a division. Let's give it a class of start button container. And in this we will have an h2 and let's type general knowledge. And then we will have a paragraph to have some information about the quiz. So let's type test your knowledge across various categories. And then lastly, let's also create a button and let's give it a class of start btn. And here let's type start quiz. And by default, we'll just hide this quiz container. So let's go to our style.css file. And here for the quiz container, let's type display of none. And now let's go ahead and style this start button container. So let's go ahead and type start button container. And the first thing we will do is we will set the position to absolute. And we'll just bring it to the center of the screen. So let's type top of 50%, left of 50%. And now we can see it starts from the 50% mark. By the way, we can see that the end screen is also displayed over here because the timer has run out. So further, let's go back to our JavaScript file, and here we can see that we are calling this function called create questions over here. So we'll just remove this function call from here, and we'll start the quiz only after clicking on this start quiz button. Right now we can see that it starts from the center. So let's go back to our CSS and let's tap transform, translate, and let's set it to negative 50% and negative 50% for X and Y axis. And now we can see it is exactly in the center. Right now let's set the font family to Roboto and sans serif. And let's set the display to flex and flex direction to column. And let's also align items to the center. Right now let's style this h2. So let's type start button container h2. And let's set the font size to 40 pixels and let's set the margin to 0. Right now let's style this button. So for the button we have this button with the class of start btn. So let's type start button container start btn. And let's set the background color to this red color right here. Let's set the color of the text to white. And let's set a padding of 8 pixels top and bottom and 32 pixels left and right. And let's also set a border radius for rounded corners. And let's set the value to 8 pixels. And let's remove the border. So let's type border none. And let's set the font size to 24 pixels. And let's set the cursor to pointer and the text transform to uppercase. And let's set the font weight to bold. And this is how the start screen looks. Right now let's go back to our HTML file, and here we can go ahead and delete all these things inside the quiz result because we are generating all of this in the JavaScript file. So let's delete everything inside quiz result. Right now the next thing we need to do is we need to start the quiz when we click on this start button, and we need to hide this start button container after that. So here let's go ahead and reference those two elements. So here let's tap const start button container, and let's set it equal to document.querySelector start btn container. And then let's also reference the start button. So let's tap const start btn equals document.querySelector start btn container start btn. Right now the next thing we need to do is when we click on this start button, we need to hide this start btn container. So let's add an event listener to this start btn. So here I'll just type start btn dot add event listener, and let's listen for the click event, and let's create an arrow function, and here let's type start btn container dot style dot display equals none. And then we need to display this quiz container because we had hidden it over here. So let's go ahead and display it. So let's type quiz container dot style dot display equals block. And then we need to start the quiz. So we need to call this function called create question. So let's type create question. And now let's see whether this works. So let's go back to our quiz and let's click on the start quiz button. And now we can see that the quiz gets started and everything is working alright. And then we can retake the quiz. But if we refresh this page, we can see that we get this start screen. And we have to click on the start quiz button to start the quiz. Right now, let's go ahead and add this to our Blogger website. So for that, let's go to the Blogger dashboard. And here I have logged into my Blogger dashboard. And let's go ahead and create a new post for a quiz. And here let's type general knowledge quiz. And here the first thing we need to do is change this into the HTML view. So click on this button and click on HTML view. Now here you can add your HTML, CSS and JavaScript code. So first of all, let's add the CSS. I'll just create a style tag for that. And in the style tag, we will add the CSS. So let's go back to our source code. And let's go to our style.css file and let's copy all this CSS from here. And let's paste it over here. And the next thing we need to do is add the HTML. So let's go back to our source code and let's go to the HTML file. And let's copy all this HTML inside the body. And let's paste it over here. And then lastly, we need to paste the JavaScript code. So let's create a script tag for that. And let's go back to our source code and let's go to the main.js file. Let's copy all this JavaScript from here and let's paste it over here. Right now, let's see whether this works. So let's click on publish and confirm. And here we can see our post has been published. Let's click on this view button. And here we can see we have this start quiz button. But here we can see that the positioning of this start button container is not correct. In our design, we didn't have any other content, so we just placed it in the center of the screen. But for our Blogger website, we need to remove the absolute position. So let's go back to our post and let's go to our CSS. And let's scroll down and here we have the start button container. And let's remove all this code from here. And now let's click on update. And now let's go back to our post and let's refresh this page. And now we can see it looks alright. Now we need to change the color of this text to black. So let's go back. And we need to do that for all these containers. So we have the start button container, we have the quiz container and also the quiz result. So here we have the quiz container. So let's type color of black. And then we have the quiz result. So here for the quiz results, let's type color and let's set it to black. And then lastly, we have the start button container. And here also let's type color and let's set it to black. And let's update it. And let's go back to our post and let's refresh this page. And now we can see we have the correct color for the text. Let's click on start quiz button. And here we have our quiz and it is working alright. Let's click on one of these options and let's click on next. And we have the next question and everything is working alright. Let's see whether we have the result displayed. And now we can see that we have the result displayed and we have scored 3 out of 5 and we have all the question and answers displayed over here. We have the answer that we submitted and the correct answer. And then if we scroll down, we have the retake quiz button and it also works alright. So that's basically how you can add this quiz to your Blogger website. Right now, if you go back to our source code, here are some things that we can customize. So we have the heading over here. You can change this to anything you want. And this is the info about our quiz, which is displayed in the start screen. And then here we have the start button. And then here we have the heading of the quiz. So you can change this to whatever you want. And then if you go to the main.js file, here are all the questions and options and the correct answer. Now you can go ahead and change this to whatever you want. You can add the question over here. You can add the options in this array and you can add the correct answer over here. So you can create as many questions as you want over here. And if you scroll down here, we have the maximum number of questions that we can have for this quiz. So you can change this to whatever you want. For now, I have set it to 5. And then if you scroll down and if you go to the create question function, here we can see that the seconds left. So right now it is set to 9, which means it will start from 10. So we will have 10 seconds left altogether. Now if you want to change this to something else, you can just change the number over here. So if you want to change this to 20 seconds, you can just change this to 19. And here in this text content, you can just change this to time left 20 seconds. And then you will have 20 seconds for each of the questions in your quiz. So these are basically the major customizations that you can do in your code. Right now, let's go back to our Blogger website and let's go ahead and add a new quiz. So adding a new quiz is really simple. You can just go ahead and copy this whole code from here and go back. Let's create a new post, and for this one, let's create a quiz for sports. So let's type sports quiz. And here let's paste all the code. Now here the only thing you need to do is you need to change these questions, and you also need to change these headings over here. So here I'll just change this heading to sports, and here I'll just change this info to test your knowledge about sports. And here for this heading, let's change this to sports quiz. And then you can simply go ahead and add your questions over here inside this quiz data array. So I'll just quickly go ahead and get some questions from ChatGPT. Alright, so here I'm in the ChatGPT website. So let's type, give me 10 questions regarding sports in this format in a JavaScript array of objects. And let's add the format over here. So let's copy this and let's paste it over here, and let's press enter. And here we can see that ChatGPT is giving us this array of objects for all the sports questions. And let's go ahead and copy this from here. So let's copy all these objects. And let's go ahead and paste it inside this quiz data array. Alright, so here I have copied and pasted all these questions and options and the answers. So now let's go ahead and click on publish and confirm. And now if we go back to our website, here we can see that we have the sports quiz, and here we have the general knowledge quiz. So if you go to sports quiz, here we can see it says sports, test your knowledge about sports. Let's click on start quiz. And here we can see that we have the questions regarding sports. So you can go ahead and solve this. And everything is working alright. We have the correct result screen displayed over here. So these are all the questions regarding sports which we just added. And if you go back to our general knowledge quiz, now we can see we have the general knowledge quiz, and here we can see we have all the questions that we added earlier. So that's basically how you can add this quiz to your Blogger website. So in this way, you can go ahead and add any number of quiz you want to your Blogger website. Alright, so that's basically it for this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below, and I will leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.